My brother and I talked every single day for 26 years. When we were kids, we shared a wall between our bedrooms, and we used to knock on it before we went to sleep. 3 knocks meant good night. That was our thing. 26 years, different cities, different lives, and we still called each other every single day. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 4 minutes just to say we called. The last real conversation I had with him was on a Tuesday afternoon in October. He called me from a number I did not recognize, and he spoke fast, quieter than usual. And he said a few things that I did not fully understand at the time. He said he was fine. He said not to worry. He said if anything ever seemed off, I should trust what I already knew about him and not what I was being told. I said okay. I said I loved him. He said it back. That was the last time he sounded like himself. What I am about to tell you is not my story. It is his. But he is not in a place to tell it, so I am going to tell it for him. And I am going to tell you everything I watched happen, from the beginning, so that if anyone out there recognizes what I am describing, they know what it is before it goes as far as it went with my brother. His name is Marcus. I am going to use his real name because he was a real person, and he deserves to be spoken about like one, not like a character in something. Marcus is 4 years younger than me. He was the kind of kid that rooms changed when he walked into them. Not in a loud way, in a warm way. People just felt better when he was there. He had this quality of making whoever he was talking to feel like they were the most interesting person in the space. Teachers loved him. Neighbors loved him. Strangers on buses would end up in 20-minute conversations with him and walk away smiling. He was also genuinely gifted, not in a specialized way, in a general way that made everything he tried come easier than it should have. He picked up guitar in 3 weeks. He could cook better than people who had been doing it for decades after watching a video twice. He was good at math, good at writing, good at reading people. The kind of person that makes you wonder what they are going to do with all of it. What he chose to do with it was business. He studied finance in college, graduated early, went into consulting. By 30, he was doing well, not wealthy, but comfortable and climbing. He had an apartment he was proud of, a small group of close friends, a woman he had been with for 3 years, who I liked very much. He called me every day. That was still true at 30. And then something happened that changed the direction of everything. He got introduced to a man through a work contact. I do not know the full story of how the introduction happened. What Marcus told me at the time was that this man was a senior figure in an investment group that was looking at some of the same sectors Marcus had been building expertise in. He said the man had reached out specifically because someone had recommended Marcus by name. He was flattered. He was 31, and someone significant had sought him out specifically. That is not a small thing. I understood why it landed the way it did. They had dinner. Marcus called me after, and he was lit up in a way I had not heard from him in a while. He said the man was brilliant, connected in ways that were hard to describe, had a perspective on how the world worked that Marcus had never encountered before. He said the conversation had gone on for 4 hours and felt like 40 minutes. I asked the man's name. Marcus told me. It meant nothing to me. I asked what the investment group was called. Marcus said it operated privately and did not have a public profile. I said that seemed a little unusual. Marcus laughed and said that was exactly the kind of thing this man had been talking about. How the most significant operations in the world are the ones with no public profile. I did not push it. He was excited. He was an adult. It was one dinner. They had a second dinner 2 weeks later, then a third. Then Marcus started mentioning other people he was meeting through this connection. Names that meant more to me than the first one. People I had actually heard of. People whose names I associated with real money and real influence. I noticed that when I asked questions about these people, Marcus started giving me less. Not hostile, just less. Like he was editing himself in real time. Like there were things he was deciding not to say. That was the first sign. I did not name it then, but that was it. The changes did not happen all at once. That is one of the things I want people to understand. If someone you love came home one day completely different, you would notice immediately, and you would do something about it. That is not how this works. It is gradual, it is incremental. And because you love the person, and you want to believe good things are happening for them, you find a way to explain each individual change in a way that makes sense. It is only when you look back at all of them together that you see the shape of what was actually happening. The first thing I noticed was the phone calls getting shorter. Not by a lot. 20 minutes instead of an hour. Then 15. Then he started missing days, which had never happened before. When I mentioned it, he apologized and said he had been busy and things were moving fast. I said I understood. The second thing was his vocabulary. Small, but real. He started using phrases I had not heard from him before. Words like alignment and collective consciousness, and elevated perspective. Not constantly, not dramatically, just woven in. Like he had been spending time with people who talked a certain way, and it was rubbing off. The third thing was the girlfriend. Her name was Diane. She called me one evening, which she had never done before, and she said she was a little worried about Marcus, and she wanted to know if I had noticed anything. I asked what she meant. She said he had become harder to reach, that he was going to meetings she did not know the details of, that when she asked about them, he got quiet in a way that was new. She said it was not a big thing, she was probably overthinking it, but she wanted to check. I told her I had noticed some things too, but nothing I could point to directly. We agreed to stay in touch. I hung up and sat with a feeling I could not name yet. About 2 months after that conversation, Diane and Marcus broke up. He told me it was mutual. Diane, when I spoke to her separately, said he had essentially become unavailable. Not cruel, not different in any way she could argue with, just gone. She said it was like trying to have a relationship with someone who was increasingly living somewhere she could not go. Marcus flew me out to visit him about 8 months into all of this. He had a new apartment, nicer than the last one by a significant margin. He said the consulting work had been going well. He said he had some new investment income. He seemed happy, or he seemed like someone performing happiness comfortably enough that you could almost not tell the difference. We had dinner the first night, and it was mostly fine, normal enough. He asked about my life, my kids, my husband. He was present, but I kept catching moments where he would say something, and then something else would cross his face briefly, like a second thought or a correction, and what came out of his mouth would be slightly different from what I thought he had started to say. On the second day he took me to lunch, and he was quiet for most of it. Then he said, "I need to tell you something, but I am not sure how much I can tell you." I said, "Tell me what you can." He said he had gotten involved with a group. He said it was not something he could describe fully. He said the people in it were not like anyone he had met before. Connected in ways that went beyond industry or money. He said they operated at a level that most people did not know existed. He said he had been asked to do things that had made him uncomfortable at first, but that he had come to understand were part of how this level operated. I asked what kinds of things. He looked at his food for a moment, then he said, information, reporting back on people, attending events that were not what they appeared to be, making decisions based on instructions rather than his own judgment. I said, "Marcus, that sounds like they own you." He said, "It is more complicated than that." I said, "Does it feel complicated, or does it feel like what I just said?" He did not answer for a long time. Then he said, "I am in it now. I do not know how to not be in it." That was the most honest thing he said to me during that entire visit. And I did not know then what I know now, which is that it was also the last truly honest conversation we were going to have for a very long time. Over the next 4 months, the calls kept coming, but they changed. He was careful, measured, like someone who had been reminded that conversations have audiences. But he slipped things in, small things. I think he was doing it on purpose. I think some part of him was leaving me a trail, even as another part of him was following instructions to close down. He mentioned once that the group had a name that most people would recognize from history, but that most people had completely wrong information about. He mentioned once that there were levels, and that he was not close to the top, and that the people near the top were not people you could find by searching for them. He mentioned once that his phone was not private. He said it casually, almost as a joke, as a comment about technology in general. But he said it while we were talking about something personal, and I understood what he was actually telling me. The last real piece of information he gave me came in a text message, not a call. It said, "If you ever need to understand what happened to me, look up the history of what the word means and not the modern version. Look at the original, then look at who benefits from people believing the modern version instead." I sat with that message for weeks. I still have it. I have looked at it more times than I can count. 3 weeks after that text, the calls stopped. He did not block me. He did not say he was done. He just became unreachable. My calls went to voicemail. My texts were delivered but not responded to. I flew to his city and went to his apartment, and his neighbor told me he had moved about 6 weeks earlier. No forwarding address. I called everyone I could think of who might know something. His old friends, most of whom had also lost touch with him around the same time I had. His former colleagues, Diane, who had heard nothing. I called the one name he had given me early on, the first man, the one whose name had meant nothing to me. I found a number through some research. It rang 4 times and a woman answered and said there was no one by that name at this number. I said I was trying to reach him about a family member. She said she understood and that she would pass along my message. No one ever called back. I filed a missing persons report. The detective who handled it was polite and thorough and told me 6 weeks later that Marcus had been located and was alive and well and had indicated he was not missing and did not wish to have contact with his family at this time. He said there was nothing further they could do. I sat in the parking lot of the police station for about an hour after that. He was alive. He was fine. And he had told them he did not want contact with his family. That is not my brother. That is not something my brother would ever say or want. And I think about that distinction a lot. The difference between what a person says and what that person wants. The gap between those two things and what can fill it when someone has enough control over another person's environment, relationships, information, and sense of identity. I know what filled that gap. I think I have known for a long time. I spent about a year doing research. Not obsessively, not to the exclusion of my own life, but steadily. I read, I talked to people. I found, through a series of connections I am not going to detail here, 2 other people who had been through something adjacent to what I believed Marcus had gone through. Neither of them used the word Illuminati directly when we first spoke. They used words like the organization, and the collective, and the group. But the structures they described, the methods of recruitment, the patterns of behavior change, the gradual isolation from outside relationships, the way information was controlled, the way exits were managed. These things matched what I had watched happen to my brother, with a precision that removed any doubt I had been holding on to. What I learned from those conversations, and from everything else I gathered, can be reduced to a few things that I think are important to say clearly. They do not recruit people who are doing badly. They recruit people who are doing well and who want to do better. People with genuine talent, genuine ambition, genuine potential. Because those are the people who have something worth using. Struggling people have less to offer. People on the rise have access, influence, credibility, and a hunger that makes them willing to do more than they should to protect the position they have worked for. Marcus was exactly that, talented, climbing, hungry. He was not desperate, he was ascending. And they found him at exactly the right moment and offered him the next rung on a ladder that turned out to lead somewhere he had not agreed to go. The isolation is not an accident. It is a method. Cutting off outside relationships is not a side effect of involvement. It is a deliberate strategy. The people you are close to before are the people who knew you before. They are the ones most likely to notice the changes, to name them, to hold a mirror up. They have to be removed. Not violently. Gradually. Through time and distance, and the slow replacement of outside closeness with inside closeness that is monitored and controlled. And the exits are managed, carefully. The threat is usually not physical. It is relational, reputational, financial. What you have built inside cannot leave with you. What you know about the people inside cannot be shared without consequence. The life you have constructed over years of involvement is held hostage to your continued participation. Most people stay not because they want to, but because the cost of leaving has been engineered to be higher than the cost of remaining. About 14 months after Marcus went silent, I received something in the mail. A plain envelope, no return address, my name and address handwritten. Inside, a single folded piece of paper, his handwriting. I knew it immediately, would know it anywhere. The note was short. I am not going to reproduce it exactly, but he said he was okay. He said he was sorry. He said he thought about our wall and the 3 knocks. He said he hoped I was well. He said do not look for him right now, but that does not mean forever. And at the bottom, underlined, he wrote, "Tell them what you saw. Someone will need to hear it." I read that line and I sat on the floor of my hallway for a long time. Tell them what you saw. I have been trying to figure out how to do that ever since. This is me doing it. I am not standing here telling you I have all the answers. I am not a researcher. I am not an expert in secret organizations or psychology or any of the things that would make me a more authoritative person to be hearing this from. I am a sister who watched something happen to someone she loved and who was told in his own handwriting to tell people about it. So here is what I want to say to you if any part of this is familiar. If someone in your life has been getting further away and you cannot find a clean explanation for it, trust what you notice. I spent months explaining away every single sign because I did not want to believe what the signs were pointing toward. Do not do what I did. The explanation that requires you to ignore the most things is usually not the right one. If someone you love is changing in ways that align with a new group of people they have become close to, and if access to that group is one way, meaning you can see the effects on your person, but you cannot see inside the group itself, that asymmetry is worth paying attention to. Healthy environments do not require the people in them to become strangers to everyone who knew them before. If someone you love has tried to tell you something, and you did not know how to hear it, it is not too late. I did not know how to hear what Marcus was trying to tell me in that restaurant until it was already too late to do anything with it. I wish I had known. I wish I had pushed past my own discomfort and said, I hear you and I take this seriously, and what do you need from me right now? If you are the person inside, the one who has been reading this wondering if I am describing your situation, I want to say this directly to you. The person who knew you before you walked into whatever room changed things, that person is still waiting. The wall is still there, even if you have not knocked on it in years. We do not stop being the people who love someone just because that person has been somewhere we could not follow. Marcus and I are not in regular contact. I am going to be honest about that because I think it matters. I have heard from him twice since the note. Both times brief, both times in ways that were clearly limited by something I could not see. He was alive, he was thinking of me. That is what I know. I do not know if he will find his way back fully. I do not know what fully even looks like at this point. Some things that happen to people change the shape of them permanently, not ruin them, just change the shape. And the person you get back, if you get them back, is not exactly the same as the one you lost. They carry something with them. You learn to love the new shape. I am ready to do that. I have been ready for a long time. Marcus, if somehow this reaches you, and I think it might, I think that is maybe part of why you told me to do it. The 3 knocks are still there. They will always be there. Whenever you are ready. I did not come here looking for sympathy. I came here because my brother asked me to tell people what I saw, and because I believe that someone watching this right now is either going through something like this, or is about to. You cannot always protect the people you love from the choices they make. You cannot follow them everywhere. You cannot undo a decision they made in a moment of hunger, or ambition, or loneliness before you knew what was happening. But you can pay attention. You can name what you see, even when naming it is uncomfortable. You can keep the door open on your side, even when they have closed theirs. And you can refuse to let them become unreachable in your mind, even when they become unreachable in your life. That is what I have done. It is not enough, but it is what I have. Watch the people you love, not with suspicion, with attention. There is a difference. Suspicion looks for problems, attention looks for the person. And sometimes looking for the person is what saves them. Take care of each other out there, really take care of each other.